Lamine Yamal is perhaps the biggest wonder kid in sports right now, but before him there were guys like Mbappé, Neymar and Lionel Messi who, till this day, everyone remembers to be wonder kids because they all went on to live up to and even surpass expectations. But there are some players who were once wonder kids, but for one reason or another, nobody remembers that time of their careers. Those are the players we will be talking about in this video today. These are 7 players you forgot were once wonder kids. We'll start with James Milner. He just recently broke a long-standing record to become the player with the most appearances in the history of the Premier League, so you can't be very surprised that most people remember him as an OG and not a young blood. But this same guy was actually a teenage sensation many years ago. He made his Premier League debut for Leeds back in 2002 at the age of 16, and that made him the second youngest player to ever feature in the Premier League at the time. He was an attacker back then, and just about a month after his debut, he would go on to become the youngest goalscorer in the history of the league at the time. His early days as a professional footballer were so dazzling that he started to draw comparisons with other former English teenage sensations like Wayne Rooney and Michael Owen. Everyone thought that Milner would continue in that path and go on to become a top goalscorer and lethal winger, but over the years, his position and style changed a lot. From being known as a real attacking threat as a teenager, Milner grew to be known as a reliable squad member who could always fill in holes for his team, whether in defense, midfield or attack. Still playing at the age of 40, most fans naturally don't remember so much about his career from nearly 25 years ago. What he's now known for is being a really experienced player with a very long career. I mean, right now, he's one of only 5 outfield players to have played a Premier League game at the age of 40 or over. But well, believe it or not, this same guy was actually a wonder kid a couple decades back, and that makes what he's doing right now even more impressive. To have burst out onto the scene at the age of 16 and still be contributing at the age of 40 in the same league is nothing short of impressive. This next guy though is nowhere near that age, but nobody remembers he was ever a wonder kid. We're talking about Timo Werner. The German broke into the Stuttgart first team at the age of 17, becoming their youngest ever player and goalscorer. At 20, RB Leipzig signed him for a club record fee, and there he went on to become the youngest player to reach 100 Bundesliga appearances, a record which would later be broken by Kai Havertz. Werner led Leipzig to Champions League qualification for the first time in their entire history and was one of the most outstanding young players out of Germany. To be fair, he was actually a very dazzling wonder kid back then, but with the way his career has panned out, there aren't many fans who still have memories of that time. His reputation was absolutely ruined after he joined Chelsea in 2020. It felt like he had no footballing IQ, and it became difficult for anyone to believe that he was ever a teenage sensation. After Chelsea, he returned to Leipzig and also joined Spurs later, but he was never able to salvage his reputation. Now, he's already in the MLS playing for the San Jose Earthquakes. Till date, Werner is seen as one of the least smart players the Premier League has seen in recent years, and not many remember that he was ever a wonder kid. Now, from a former Chelsea player to a former Arsenal one, let's talk about Reiss Nelson. Not many remember, but back in the 2000s, Reiss Nelson was more highly rated than Bukayo Saka. Everyone thought that he was the future of Arsenal's attack. In 2017, at the age of 17, Arsene Wenger called him up to the first team, giving him his senior team debut in the Community Shield game against Chelsea. When Alexis Sanchez left in January of 2018 to join Manchester United, everyone said that Reiss Nelson would step up and take over Arsenal's left wing, but it just didn't happen for him. When Unai Emery took over from Wenger in the summer of 2018, that was when Nelson's career started to take a downturn. The Spanish gaffer didn't fancy the teenager so much, so he loaned him out to Hoffenheim, and that was when he started to slowly fade. But in the long run, it was injuries that did him the most damage. His late winner against Bournemouth in 2023 could have been the start of something new for him. But injuries just kept hampering his progress. These days, he's remembered as just another player from Arsenal's academy. Not many remember that he was a wonder kid. In fact, arguably the most highly rated wonder kid among his peers back then. Now, from a former Arsenal guy, let's move to a former Liverpool guy, Harvey Elliott. We say former, but he's only out on loan at Aston Villa right now. However, he doesn't look like he'll be playing for Liverpool again. Anyway, this guy right here was once England's golden egg. He came up from the Fulham Academy and broke into the first team very young. At 15, he made his first team debut, becoming the youngest player in the club's history as well as in the history of the EFL Cup. He would go on to make his Premier League debut in 2019 at the age of 16, becoming the youngest player in Premier League history at the time, a record he held until Ethan Nwaneri broke it in 2022. Elliott was so good as a teenager. He was one of the country's biggest wonderkids and seemed to have a very high ceiling. Liverpool saw all of that and signed him in 2019, and everyone thought that that was the start of something super beautiful, but the player just never seemed to be able to cross over from being a wonderkid to actually just being a first-team player. He never really got to become a regular at Liverpool, and right now, even though he's still a young player at the age of 22, the Reds seem to have given up on him, and it doesn't seem like he'll end up joining any other top club. I mean, even Aston Villa haven't fancied him so much so far. His international career has been pretty disappointing too. He still has not been able to break into the first team after so many years in the youth ranks. Last year, at the age of 22, he was still playing for the under-21 side, while players who were never as good as him as teenagers have leapfrogged him into the first team. A few years back, a lot of people thought Elliott could be the new Michael Owen or something, but now it's hard to remember that he was ever even a wonderkid, meant that he broke Cristiano Ronaldo's record to become the youngest Portuguese player to be selected for a major international tournament. In that same tournament, he would go on to become the youngest Portuguese player to start in a major tournament and the youngest player to score a goal in a Euros knockout game at the time. He was one of the most important players for Portugal as they went on to win their first ever major trophy at Euro 2016, and he was named the Young Player of the tournament. That same year, he also won the Golden Boy Award. Everyone thought that this kid was about to take the entire footballing world by storm, and nobody wanted to miss out, so there was a battle for his signature in the summer of 2016. In the end, it was Bayern Munich who got him after agreeing to a total package of 80 million euros with Benfica, making him the most expensive Portuguese player to leave the Portuguese top flight and the fourth most expensive player in Bayern's history at the time. But it didn't take long for everything to come crashing down. 1 year after that transfer, he was sent out on loan to Swansea City and then sold to Lille in 2019. It seemed like he would bounce back in 2022 when he signed with PSG, but that was not the case. He even returned to Benfica in 2023, but even that didn't do much to revive his career. Right now, he's playing for Panathinaikos in Greece at the age of 28, and many people have forgotten that he was the best young player in the world just 10 years ago. Speaking of former Golden Boy winners, let's now talk about Matthijs de Ligt. To be fair, he has a really good CV, having played for Ajax, Juventus, Bayern Munich, and now Manchester United. He's not terrible right now, but he just gives off the vibes of a regular guy, not one who was once the best in the world in his age group. He broke out from Ajax's academy as a teenager and went on to become the youngest captain in the club's entire history at the age of 18. At the time, De Ligt was something we had never seen before. He was so good that he became the first defender to ever win the Golden Boy Award when he clinched it in 2018. He would then become the youngest player to captain a side in a Champions League knockout game the following year. In 2019, he led Ajax to their first Champions League semi-final in 22 years, defeating defending champions Real Madrid and Ronaldo's Juventus on the way. He also came very close to taking them all the way to the final that year. After having seen all this, Juventus felt confident to splash 75 million euros on him in 2019, but he just was never able to live up to expectations. But like we said earlier, he's surely not a bad player right now, but looking at him, you might find it a little hard to remember that this guy was once a teenage sensation who seemed to have the entire world eating out of his palm. Let's now wrap this list up with one of the OG wonderkids, Alen Halilovic. Do you guys even remember him? Barcelona bought him in 2014 when he was 18 years old, but because of how good he was and how he seemed to fit right into Barcelona's style, a lot of people still think he came up from La Masia. A lot was said about the blonde-haired wonder kid, how he was the next Lionel Messi and how he would take the entire world by storm. But just a year after Barcelona signed him, they loaned him out to Sporting Gijón, and a year after that, his Blaugrana story was already over as he was sold to Hamburger SV. In Halilovic's case, not only do folks not remember that he was once a wonder kid, most people don't even remember him at all. He's still in his 20s and is still an active footballer playing in the Dutch Eredivisie, but sadly, he has been long forgotten. Are there more players a lot of people have forgotten were once Wonder Kids? Drop their names in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, turn on the bell notification so you never miss out on new content. Catch you in the next one. Bye.